And then in that position, you're going to keep your upper body relaxed and you're going to start doing hip tucks. So this is tucking and untucking your hips. And I want you to move as much as you can in both directions as long as it feels good. And what might happen is each time you go around, you will be able to move a little more. So upper body, take a second to again, let go, completely relax it. And then the breathing is exhale, your low back relaxes off the ground so you untuck your hips. And then inhale, you're gonna do the opposite. You're gonna roll your hips, low back relaxes into the ground, and you tuck your tailbone a little bit, and then the opposite, exhale. So you should feel your hips basically rocking on the ground back and forth. And your upper body, every time you check in, go back to just letting go. And that's in through the nose, out through the mouth. And when you untuck, think of your low back relaxing off the ground. So the movement is through your hips and not necessarily using your low back to come off the ground. So you shouldn't feel your low back muscles as you do that. So even though we don't train in those extreme positions, it's still important to be able to move through those positions and have them feel okay. And rest. So now you're gonna do quad on elbows. If you have a pillow near you, you can use a pillow to elevate yourself a little more. If you want, you can grab one. But even without it, your shoulders should still be below your hips. So the pillow would be for your knees, or you could be on the ground. And then so what that does is it elevates my hips way higher than my shoulders. So now my shoulders are lower. So I'm going to leverage the upper part of my rib cage to expand. So the way you set up here is go elbows on the ground. I like to relax fully before I start, and then tuck the back pockets a little bit, and then make a conscious effort of using your elbows to push away instead of pulling your head back. So think of the elbows doing all of the work, so your shoulders, and once you're there, you'll just hang out there for breaths. In through the nose, full breath out through your mouth. In through the nose. See if you can count your exhale and let it go for 8 to 10 seconds. And relax. And now you're going to take, you can either do it on the ground or you can sit on your pillow, and you're going to do short seated breathing. So sit down, bring your knees close to your chest. The only thing here though is I don't want like hip flexor to start cramping. So if it does, just bring your legs out a little bit. So bring your knees as close as you can to your chest, in through the nose, full breath out. And I want you to picture the spot between your hand and your rib cage getting away from each other without you hunching over and getting shorter. So as you exhale, picture this space getting longer and bigger. And then what that should do is give you some expansion in your upper back. Cool. So now you're going to point your fingers down towards the ground, but you're still reaching forward. Even more, Sam. Yes, perfect. A little more, come down, Christine. Down towards the ground with your fingertips, there. So what that will do is it'll give you a little more of a stretch in your upper back. And Julia, point down even more. Perfect. Each exhale, you're gonna think of reaching a tiny bit more. And take a break. Now you're gonna go back to the pelvic tuck. So you're gonna take a second to relax your upper body. You can use a pillow if you want, if that's comfortable, or no pillow. So arms to your side, completely let go, then start pushing into your feet. You're gonna exhale as your low back relaxes off the ground. You untuck your hips. Inhale, roll the hips the other way, low back goes into the ground. Move your hips as much as you can in both directions. That's all being driven by your hips and your feet. And your low back is just kind of along for the ride. So it's not really working, but it's still able to move with your hips. And rest. You're gonna go back to your quad on elbows. So both Jess, you both did rock back, which is another exercise which I love just as much. So instead of pushing your butt back like this, you want to make it more into a plank. So get your knees underneath your hips, then elbows like that. But I do both exercises, so both of them look good, which is why I let you go. So instead of rocking back, just bring your elbows forward. So it's going to be more weight on your upper body. Yes, perfect. And then Julia, bring your elbows forward a little more. Awesome. Flatten that mid back just a tiny bit. Right there. Awesome. And the weight is on your elbows for the most part. So shift the weight forward, but then don't lose the reach once you're there. And then start counting how long you can exhale. And relax. Back to the short-seated breathing. So start with arms slightly parallel to the ground to get a reach. That gives you an idea of reaching forward like this. Then keep the forward reach, but then point down. So it's a downward reach, still going forward. What that will do is allow you to stretch right in the upper back area. So once you have the forward reach, then point down, but the shoulder blades still are pulled forward. They don't get pulled back. Awesome. Now, at the end of the exhale, you should feel some abs. If you maintain that tension, you might feel more of a stretch in your upper back. And if you don't, as you breathe in, see if you can just get a little extra reach down towards the ground as you breathe in. Those look good. And relax. One more pelvic rock on the ground. So take a second to relax your upper body. And this time go a little wider through your feet just to see how that feels. So feet are still going to be straight ahead. Take a second to relax your upper body. And then exhale as you relax your low back off the ground. Inhale, you're rolling your hips. Go a little higher this time. Go into like a little bit of a glute bridge. And then exhale back to the other side. And rest. Back to all fours. So knees underneath your hips. Make sure you unshrug your shoulders. So you're on the ground, unshrug your shoulders, then push away. Nice. You're going to keep the shift or the weight forward. Awesome. Full breath out. Are you able to get about 10 seconds? And take a break. Back one more short seated. So start with the forward reach just to get the shoulders around the rib cage, the side of your body. And then keep that shoulder position as you reach it down to the ground. Even go pinkies to the ground as long as you're not resting them. So go all the way down to where your pinky is touching the ground, but you're still reaching. Awesome. See if you can get that 10-second exhale. At the end of the exhale, you should feel some abs. Reach a little more. The full breath out, you're reaching forward and down. And maintain the ab tension as you breathe in, and you should feel a nice little stretch in your upper back. And rest. Awesome. Now we are going to go into rock back. And if there's a way for you to check yourself, so what I'm always looking for in rock back are two things. One, I want the spine to be nice and smooth, like rounded. So what I mean by that is a nice arch. So from here to my upper back, I'm just like nice and smooth. What I don't want is a lot of flatness or like too much roundness, like hunchiness. And we'll talk about it later of how to I move things around. That's one thing. And then the other thing that I always look for, I will get behind or in front of the client and I check their upper traps. So from this position, I come here and I make sure that the upper traps don't feel like a stone. I push them down, and sometimes that's all people need. But if they feel like a stone, that's when I start changing the variation. So for you, go ahead and push your butt back to your heels, and I think all of you will be able to do it. Sometimes I have to shorten the range for some people who are very stiff. Elbows go down, unshrug your shoulders, and then push away. And then just take one hand and just check your upper traps. Mine feel fine, and breathe. If they feel super toned, you can try pillow underneath your elbows. Awesome. So check the upper traps. And then you're still pushing through the floor like you're in all fours. Everybody looks good. And then without using your neck, think of relaxing your chin away from your chest. So just bring your chin forward. You don't want to crank your neck back. And just breathe in that position. Full breath out. And then think of not breathing into your belly as you breathe in. And take a break. Now you're gonna flip over on your back and you're gonna reach. I want you to check the same thing. Are you able to reach without using your neck? This is where a pillow actually comes in handy. When you ask a client to reach in the supine position and they do two things, they like come up this way, or they feel themselves pushing their head into the ground, just adding a pillow sometimes helps. You won't know until you try it. So from here, now their head can relax on the pillow and their shoulders can come off the ground. And it also opens up some space between their back and the ground, which can help with breathing. So in through the nose. Full breath out. Once you're there, check in on your head and relax it on the ground or on the pillow. Reach up towards the ceiling, like someone's pulling your shoulders off the ground. And the more you reach, the more abs you should feel. And go ahead and give me a little bit of a tuck through your hips. Nice. Each exhale, you reach a little more. And rest. Now we're gonna go into half kneeling, forward lean. And the reason why we do forward lean is because every person that we teach this to in the beginning will always do this. And if they're doing this, now they're just arching their back. So if we reach someone's hips back and from there teach them to tuck the back pockets without shoving forward, now they're getting set up for a better lunge in the future. So one knee down, one knee up. Think of reaching your hips back a little bit so your chest does come forward. You don't want to go here. And from that position, think of your back pocket getting pulled down, but your hip doesn't come forward. So notice how this is staying right where it is and not shoving forward. So once you're there, hold. Push into your front foot. Everybody looks good. Awesome. And think of the upper body kind of relaxing, shoulders relaxing, and think of your front foot and bottom knee holding you in that position. So really pay attention to those references. And switch sides. You're gonna reach your hips back. And then pull the back pocket full or down without shoving your hip forward. And it's a pull down with the back pocket, not a glute squeeze. And that's what most people will do because they're used to that hip flexor stretch. And you're pushing into your front foot. And rest. Back to rock back. So butt to your heels. Relax into that position. Elbows go down. Think of unshrugging your shoulders and notice my head doesn't move. I just get pushed straight up. If I hunch over, my head is actually going to start looking down more towards my knees. So in this position, pushing straight up, my eyes stay right in the same level. Really good. And then in that position, relax your chin away from your chest. And if people feel a lot in their back of their head, I just let them get their head forward a little bit. Just kind of relax it down to the ground a tiny bit. Full breath out. Notice where the air goes as you breathe in. And rest. Back to laying on your back. If that felt pretty easy, you can add some abs to it by bringing your legs up. So you want to find a spot that's challenging. So the easier, it's easier if you bring your knees to your chest, harder if you go further away. But the goal is you can continue to breathe and keep your low back on the ground. So in through the nose, full breath out without using your neck. And relax. You should have felt a little more abs on that one. So now back to half kneeling. So one knee up, one knee down. Think of reaching your hips back, and then put your hand on the front of your hip. As you pull the back pocket down, this shouldn't move. The only thing that should move is move up towards your chest, rolling the hips. Good. And then Christine and Julia, bring your front foot back a little bit. Good. Now you can feel your whole foot. And then check in with your upper body. Shoulders should be relaxed. Think of your lower body holding you up there. And switch sides. And shift the hips back, pull the back pocket down, and then check in with your upper body. And relax. One more rock back. So butt to your heels, elbows down, and then go before you reach, get your chin away from your chest. So relax your head, chin away from your chest, and then push your elbows into the ground as you get away without using your neck. So relax the back of your neck. It's your shoulders holding you up. Count your exhale. How long are you able to exhale? And relax. Back to the dead bug iso hold. So find your low back on the ground on the supine position, and then full breath out as you reach your arms up. Picture everything deflating as you fully exhale, and then keep it on the ground as you breathe in. Keep reaching a little more. And rest. Back to one more half kneeling on each side. Looks good. You're not shoving the hip forward. You're just pulling the back pocket down. And switch sides. And relax. Now you're going to go back on your back. And just like the beginning, you're going to completely let go and see how long you can hold on to that feeling with your attention. And if you get distracted, go back to fully relaxing. You'll do that for a couple minutes. Awesome. And whenever you're ready, start moving around. So I just sent you, go ahead and open, because when I close the room, it will go away. I just sent you our onboarding. But just open it and you don't have to look at it because I'm going to share my screen. But I just want you to have it before I exit out of the meeting. And then you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Is everyone able to open it? Cool. So I went through some of the moves just now. So the reason behind this onboarding was when I wrote it, I was really being pressured by one of my colleagues to write an onboarding program that someone without my experience could be able to follow. And the truth is, someone who does this for a while, they end up doing a lot of decisions intuitively. And you probably already do that like on the training floor. Like you see someone squat so many times that when you see it again, you know exactly what cue to use. But if someone asks you like, why'd you use that cue? Like, well, I've been using it for 5 years and it's worked every time someone does X, Y, and Z. This is the same thing. But you can't like teach that intuition to someone who doesn't have that experience. So what this is it kind of allows someone to follow these steps to hopefully get to the same conclusion that I would have done. And it doesn't make me do something that I can do and now my staff can't do. Because that's another problem with people. It's if the owner did something on day one with someone and then the less experienced coach comes in and it's like, well, Lucy did this one thing, like she fixed it. So my hope is I get rid of that. I also have gotten rid of most of my hands-on cues just because new coaches are really bad with hands-on. And my business partner and I were really good at it, and it was a big difference. Every time we would try to have someone else in, people notice a big difference. So I've been doing less and less hands-on, which helps now with COVID because we're not allowed to touch people. So I'm going to share my screen and quickly go through. So in the last video, if you go on my YouTube, I went through this part. So this is the assessment that I take people through. I do a couple other things on here. I just wanted to not confuse people. And then I went through the last time of how I introduce breathing with someone for the first time. And you'll notice it's very slow. It's like one step at a time. Then this, because I've been doing this for a while, this takes me maybe 30 minutes with a new person, and I still have an hour. Then I move on to what I say is like the real assessment. And this is where I really just get in a good idea of like, who am I dealing with? What positions are they good in? And once I run them through this, then I take our initial template and just modify it for that person. So this is technically what I would want someone to do on their first semi-private with us. So we also do only semi-private. We don't do one-on-one. So if we go through this real quick, the first thing I look at, which I kind of do when I introduce breathing, is someone's ability to tuck their hips. Because in someone's program, I do want to do things like 90-90 and glute bridge and things like that. But a lot of people struggle tucking in the hook line position. So I test that out on this day. So here I wrote some of the questions that I'm paying attention to. Like, were they able to roll their hips? Because if they weren't, then I'm not going to cue that very much for their first initial sessions, because then they are going to get frustrated. So what I'm looking for there is, are they able to, what you all do in mindful movement, are they able to roll their hips that way? And I'm kind of paying attention to that to see if they can even do that. If they can't, I'm going to write it on there. Because let's say I tried 4 different times and I just couldn't do it, and they just kept doing this because they don't have the ability to roll. Then I write that on there, and if they train with my business partner is not really going to cue it. Because what's happened in the past is my business partner works with someone, or maybe I work with someone. We didn't make these observations. And then I come in their first day and I'm like, all right, roll your hips. And they're like, I can't do that. Like, I already tried last time. So that kind of avoids those discrepancies like from day 1 and day 2. So I pay attention, can they roll their hips? If they can, 90-90 is on there. I also pay attention to, can they roll their hips in hook line? Are they able to roll their hips? If they can't, what's an exercise you think that I won't put on their warm-up? That's a very common warm-up exercise.
90-90.
90-90 and a glute bridge, like with feet on the ground. And I cue tuck with a lot of exercises like you all did with your reaching. But if they can't do it, then I just won't cue it. So I write that on there, can't cue with feet on the ground, or can't tuck with feet on the ground. Then I look at their 90-90 reaching. So that's what you all did. So I have someone on the table. Armbar. I say, okay, so now you're going to reach your arms up as you fully exhale. And I notice where they feel that. Do they feel their abs? Or are they just feeling neck? If they're feeling neck, I try a pillow. I'm like, okay, see if that fixes it. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's good. I will write that on there. As soon as we added pillow or Eric's pad, they were able to reach and feel abs. Or if they didn't, they're like, no, I just felt neck. I also write that on there because I want to see their ability to reach up and feel abs and feel their shoulders. An exercise we do a lot in the beginning with our clients is arm bar, which is just 5, 8, 10 pounds reaching. It's an awesome exercise to do for people's warm up, but if they can't reach without feeling their neck here, would I put that in their warm up? Probably not. So that gives me an idea of what am I going to do arm bar with them? Am I going to do exercises on their back? Because if they weren't able to feel abs, they're not going to feel successful doing things like dead bugs, like you all just did. So I write where do they feel it? How did they respond to it? And were they able to do it without shrugging? Side lying. I talked a little bit about this in the last video. I don't always go side lying with people, but if someone has a wide infrasternal angle, and we can talk about this at another day, then I check out their side lying. But same thing, am I just putting them in side lying and breathing, or are they able to tuck? So that way, next day comes in, or with my business partner, he knows what to cue and what not to cue. And then I look at people's quadruped position. So I get them on all fours. And I also want to remind you, I work with the really deconditioned population, so people in pain. So quadruped can be pretty hard for these people. And quadruped, I'm looking at the same thing. Are they able to unshrug their shoulders and push away and feel like, oh wow, yeah, I definitely feel my shoulders and I definitely feel my abs. That looks pretty good. And then sometimes I'll try a couple variations like, okay, stay there and like alternate. And then it's like, wow, I feel so much abs. So to me right there, they're successful in quadruped. But what ends up happening most of the time is I say, unshrug your shoulders and reach away, and they do this. And then I try to cue them out of it, but then they can only do this, and they're like, I only feel my neck. Then I write that down. A couple reasons why that might be. If someone doesn't have access to their upper back area, like with the rock back and the short seated, they literally can't do this. So their only way of pushing is what they have access to, which is this. That might be one reason. Another reason is they might just be really deconditioned and weak, so they can't hold themselves up. If they struggle, because I have people in the supine position who really struggle doing this, like their arms burning, and that's no weight. Flipping them over and having them hold their head and their upper rib cage is probably a lot of weight. So that might be another thing that you're looking at, is they are just very deconditioned in that position. So you can do a lot of supine stuff, like working on that strength. So I just pay attention to what can they do in quadruped. So if someone really sucks at that, what am I not going to do in their program? No matter how much I cued it.
Planks, probably.
Yeah, bear crawls, planks, bird dogs, anything on all fours, single arm row on a bench. I just know I'm not even going to go there. So that's what I'm thinking. It's like, okay, these people suck at quadruped. I'm going to do more dead bugs, wall press abs, leg lowers, if they did well in the 90-90 area. And then cat-cow, I don't do this with everybody, but if I'm doing cat-cow with someone, it's because I've failed with all the other ones before this. And there I'm just like, just move through your hips. And it does give you an idea of where people can move from. And it is actually pretty cool to see people's progress in this. Because I'll say, okay, what I want you to do, and I don't even worry about the upper body on this one, is I want you to only move through your hips. So you untuck and tuck, and just pay attention to that. And when they do this, you know that they don't have access to a lot of motion in their hips. So it is kind of cool to see that progress over time. But it is giving them an idea of what it's like to untuck and tuck. So I do like doing that one for people who really struggle with all the ones before this. Then rock back variation. Sometimes, and I don't know why, that's why I like doing this, people will suck at 90-90 reaching, they'll suck in quadruped, but then I put them in rock back, and they're able to get a nice reach without their neck. And so we do a lot of rock back variations with them. But rock back doesn't always work for someone, just regular rock back. So what I will do is I will have like 3 Eric's pads with me. And I show them rock back. I'm like, okay, so you're gonna relax your heel or butt to your heels, elbows down, and then push away without shrugging. If they're shrugging, that's when I start to play around with the position. I bring pad underneath the elbows, see if that's better. I might bring 2. I might put a pad between their stomach and then pad on the elbows. So I'm literally just trying to make it pretty, where it's nice and smooth and then shoulders are relaxed. Once I find the variation that works for them, I write it on there. Because what we don't want is, which I've a bad habit in the past because I used to just keep everything in my head. They come in the next day and their program says rock back, and my business partner doesn't know which variation we did. And then so he does regular rock back and it looks bad. And they're like, well, Lucy did this one thing. Like, we don't want any of that. We want Dave to already be ready with put the pad underneath your knees and pad underneath your elbows. So they need to not feel like we haven't communicated about them, because we have done that in the past and it's just a really bad look of this just one thing that Lucy did. So I make sure I write pad underneath the elbows. Then we do our 2 upper body lifts that we do with our clients is seated landmine press, because we have the very light trainer bars, which is seated on the plyo box, and then they just press the weight overhead, and it's 15-pound bar, so it's barely anything. But I also deal with a very deconditioned population, so sometimes that is too much. So I just do 1 round of it and see how well they can press without shrugging. Because if I can't get them to reach without shrugging, I'm going to get rid of landmine, and we're going to go more with a pull down. And I might check pull down then, or I might not. But if they don't do well with landmine, I will take it off of there. And then I also check their half kneeling position and what do they need to be able to do a good half kneeling. Did you have a question, Sam? Okay. So half kneeling is what you did. Shift the way back, tuck the back pocket, and most of the time I have to grab a bench, and people hold on to a bench as they're holding on. A lot of the people who are really stiff do really well with this. It's the people who are very hypermobile and deconditioned that I don't like half kneeling, because they'll do they're like this. They like can't get in the position. So for those people who are very unstable, I just get rid of half kneeling and I wait a little bit for them to gain a little more strength and more coordination. And then the last thing I check is a squat. Our go-to squat is a ramp, on a ramp, holding onto a barbell, like a barbell that's on the rack, so they're not holding on to it. And I'll show you that in a second when I stop sharing my screen. I love this variation. It's probably like the best variation we've had that gets people where we want them to be. But some people are very conditioned to not bring their knees forward when they squat because they've always heard knees back, knees back. And these people will not bring their knees forward. So let me stop sharing. So what that looks like with the ramp. Put them on a ramp, barbell is here, and I'm like, soften your knees, pull the back pockets down, and then squat a little bit. Like this is as much squatting that people need in the beginning. If someone is feeling skeptical about all of this and they're just wanting to work out hard, I'll just challenge them and have them come lower. But the people that don't want to bring their knees forward, they'll just do this. Even though I'll be here saying, bring your knees forward, they'll still do this. So for those people, instead of frustrating them, next time they come in with the same cue over and over, I like to put those people on a wall where I can manipulate where their feet go, and then they have to squat down and they have no choice but to bring their knees forward. So the wall squat is foot length away from the wall, feet straight ahead, and then squat down. The low back on the ground, so now they have to bring their knees forward. And now you write that on there, like what squat variation did they do best in? And that's me looking at the moves of what they do well in. A couple other things that I'm paying attention to. How well did they take cues? Some people take cues really well, and I have to make an observation and write that on there so we know how to deal with them when they come in the next time. How did they feel? Did they feel everything when you asked them how they felt, where that felt? So did you feel hamstrings? Yes. Did you feel abs? Yes. Some people like tuck, and they're like, tuck what? Like one client, he was with us for, I didn't coach him very often because he came on the times I wasn't there. But I mean, a few months in, and I said, hey, tuck. He goes, tuck what? Where have you been this whole time? What do you mean tuck what? How do you not know what tuck means? So some people just don't get it. So we just don't ask that many. We don't ask, like, did you feel hamstrings? And they're like, I don't know. Where are my hamstrings? So I write that on there. It's like they don't know. They can't give me good feedback. That's what I write. And then were they able to carry over cues from one exercise to another? Because if they were, I'm going to use that next time. So what that looks like is they're doing glute bridge or 90-90. And then later on, we try half kneeling. And I'll say, so that same move that you just did, pull the back pockets down. So the same tuck. And if they look at me like, what do you mean by that? Then I don't carry over cues anymore. It's like a new cue, new exercise every time for these people. And that's how I talk to them. It's like, you're gonna roll your hips. So I don't try to confuse them and say, just like glute bridge. So I make that observation, like, were they able to carry over one cue to the other exercise? And then the other thing that I also write is, do they need to be demoed each exercise each time they do it? Some people, I can show them their 3 exercises, because I'll go through this like in a little circuit. They'll do 90-90, then quadruped, and then rock back. Some people, I'm like, go back to the 90-90. And they know what that means. Other people just need to be demoed for just a second, like, go back to the 90-90 where you were reaching. I'm like, oh, okay. So I make sure that I'm observant of what they need. Because if they need to be demoed that exercise, then we have to continue to do that for that person when they come in next. And that's gonna get rid of like the frustration of like, I don't know what you want me to do. Because some people, super easy, like go back to the ramp squat. And to us, that's pretty self-explanatory. Like you already did ramp squat once. If I say ramp squat, you should know what that means, but that's because we're trainers. For the client, like ramp squat just sounded like go back to the because they don't even know how to process these names. They don't even know what squat means. So we have to remember that people don't know this terminology, and to what seems very simple to us, to them, that it made no sense. And I really paid attention to that. It's like, go back to the ramp squat where you're on the ramp, holding onto the barbell in with the squat. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, now I know what you mean. So those are a few other observations that I look at. So before we move on, any questions on this? So an example. This is what I take people through on their first day of their semi-private. And what the verbiage that we use here is, so your first day is going to be very similar to what we did today. So this is my movement consultation. And you're really going to pay attention to the positions and the lingo and the cues, because we find that people who really get the cues and the lingo are so much more successful once we progress them. And when you come in the first time, it should take you about 45 minutes. I train the deconditioned population, so for them, this is plenty, sometimes a little too much. I have to get rid of the last two. But if I'm dealing with someone who wants to work out more, they still do this, but I just crush them at the end with some sleds and ropes and like a finisher. But this is already like a semi-private they're coming into with 3 other people. So this is what it would look, our template looks like. I like a 5-minute walk. I have the 5-minute walk on there because 2 reasons. It gets blood flow going. And if you're dealing with someone in chronic pain, they have a very sensitive system when it comes to pain. And our pain system is kind of like a smoke detector. And when it works well, it's letting you know there's a fire in the house, just like regular pain. You step on glass, hopefully you feel pain because now you have to protect yourself. When we're dealing with someone in chronic pain and someone who's really scared, their system is sensitive that it goes off every time you make eggs. So it's not appropriate for my smoke detector to go off every morning when I'm just making eggs. So people with chronic pain, it's very similar. What they really do well with is cardio, because it gets blood pumping, it gets blood flow moving, and that brings the sensitivity down. So I have found that doing some cardio with people, it just makes them less sensitive. And these are the people that everything hurts. Like no matter how well you tuck, no matter how well you're reaching, just always hurting. So bringing that sensitivity down helps. But the other reason why I have this on here is because if my 3 semi-privates come in at the same time, and now I have this brand new person and I need to buy myself some time, I'm like, you're going to start with 5 minutes on the treadmill, and that buys me time. I always do that. I always, if I have 3 new programs and I have this person like, I hurt my arm, I can't use it, I'll just make stuff up with clients. I'm like, you know what? I'd be really curious to see what it would look like today if you did 10 minutes on the bike before you start your session. And they're like, I don't know. And then that just bought me 10 minutes. So cardio is really good for that. To make the flow go better. So the 90-90 tilts on the ledge is they're just tilting a 90-90 back and forth 5 to 10 times. And then 90-90 reaching is what you all basically did, just reaching your hands up. Half kneeling forward lean is what you all did. Rock back, same thing that you all did. And then the ramp squat hold and seated landmine. So this is basically our template for a brand new person when they come in their first day. So if these were my...
A quick question on those.
Yeah.
I was wondering, for the, like when you're doing those different positions, for the breathing component, are you doing sort of, you know, breathing under the tension, or is it going to depend on how well someone did, whether it was just the exhale, the pause, or the breathe under tension? Will it be client specific in that way?
Yes, how well they did. So like here I would have wrote, they only worked on the exhaling. So on the initial session, I would write on here, work on fully exhaling. And that way, Dave, if he's training them, they know that that's all they're really paying attention to is that full exhale. Yeah, good question. So if someone comes in and they struggled in hook lying, so they didn't do well with glute bridge, they felt their back, 90-90 was better when we did it against the wall, because sometimes the ledge, even though it's easier to coach that way, if you use the ledge, sometimes people will feel some knee pain because they're using too much dragging down. So if you move those people over to a wall, that usually takes care of it. So with this person, 90-90 felt well, but only until we moved to a wall. And then 90-90 reaching, they just felt upper traps. So every time I tried the pillow, it didn't work. I tried one arm at a time, it didn't work. I tried with no weight, it didn't work. So 90-90 reaching did not go well. Didn't do sideline. Quadruped position, same thing. I couldn't get them without shrugging, and they only felt their neck, and they're starting to get frustrated. I didn't do cat-cow because they were already frustrated from being on all fours. Rock back variation worked really well when I put 2 pads under their elbows, and upper traps felt nice and soft. So that was the only way they were able to get a nice reach, is when I put 2 pads underneath the elbows. I didn't even try seated landmine just because they couldn't do any of the reaching without feeling neck. So I just went ahead and tried a pull down, a light pull down, and that seemed to work really well because it supported her on the way up. So whereas she was able to unshrug, and then she was able to pull down. And in half kneeling position worked well, but I had to put a bench in front of her so she could hold herself up. And in squat variation, she was one of those people who just did not want to drive their knees forward, but it looked great when I put her against the wall. So that's my first day with her. These are the observations that I made. So when they come in for their first session, what it would look like to change things up, 90-90 on the ledge was good. And like Jess brought up, let's say she could only exhale. So now Dave knows that he's gonna just only put that cue in. And then 90-90 reaching did not go well. So what I sometimes do is I will go just exhaling here. So just work on exhaling. And then here, I don't do any breathing. For someone who just like can't even use their upper body. So that's like me breaking it down even more. And then half kneeling forward lean looked great, but I need to make sure I write my modification. So bench in front. So now Dave knows to set up the bench when the person's about to do half kneeling. And then with rock back, again, it worked really well, but it wasn't until I put 2 blue pads under elbows. So I would go 2 under elbows. And then ramp squat hold, I would change to wall squat. So I'm doing this right after they came in to see me. And then that looks good. And then short seated. I write the weight on there because men suck at picking weight for women. Seriously, especially deconditioned women. She was struggling with the breathing because sometimes I'll have people breathe a certain way when they do pull downs. But this is seriously a big problem. Men don't know how to pick weights for women who are deconditioned. Like I used to have a male employee. I would have to like go up to the cable. I'm like, go feel that. And they would feel it and like, that's so easy. I'm like, she was shaking. And I would catch them picking weights that were way too heavy for women in the upper body. And then they didn't even feel safe complaining to them. They're like, I keep doing that one exercise and all I feel is my neck. Like, makes sense because it's way too heavy. So guys really do have a hard time like picking weight for women who are just starting out. And that's what their first day looks like. So they should come in and they shouldn't really struggle that much with the cueing and things that are very overwhelming to the point where now they're getting turned off by the details. because you're able to meet that person where they're at. Like, I want them to struggle a little bit because they're learning new things, but not to the point where now they're getting turned off by it. And so once they go through this should take about 45 minutes. They can do stuff that's like a sled pushing or rope slams or ball slams if they're wanting to work out more, if they're not deconditioned. But this is where it's really interesting. I asked them, hey, Jane, on the scale of 1 to 10, how crushed are you going to feel after this? Like 10 means you feel like you're not going to be able to walk tomorrow. And 4, it feels good. It's interesting for people's perception of exercise because I get a lot of 8s and 9s, even though in my eyes they've done nothing. So if we think about it, someone who's never exercised before, someone who's scared of exercise, they're very deconditioned, they haven't built the tolerance to exercise. So muscles burning a little bit, blood pumping a little bit, to them it might be bigger than what it is. So their perception of exercise is way higher than what they're actually going through. As coaches, and if you were an ex-athlete, you've probably built that tolerance a little bit. Like, I've gotten to the point where I throw up, but I know I'm not going to die. These people have never gotten there. So we have to slowly build that tolerance up and kind of meet them where they're at. If they think they're working out a ton, even though we know they're not, we have to be able to just like meet them there and work our way up. So if they give me anything from like an 8 and above, I said, awesome. So next time you come in, you're going to do the same thing. Now they're not that scared because maybe they're wondering like, am I going to do more next time? Because I don't think I can handle more. So if they give me anything high, I'm like, cool, you're going to do the same thing one more time next time you come in. If they give me something below a 6, like, I feel like nothing, I say, awesome. So next time you come in, you're going to have 2 pages. So this part of the workout's only going to be like 10, 15 minutes. That's your warm up. And then you're going to have a whole other day. And that's how I progress that person. And there I would make very similar tweaks to what we just went through. So I would get rid of the reaching. I would add the bench here. I would get rid of quadruped tucking. I would put rock back on there. So they already know these exercises. They should be pretty independent when they come in. And then they start their 1-day program, which I go over next week. But that's how I get an idea of like who I'm dealing with, what positions are they successful in. And what I mean by that is they feel the muscles I want them to feel. They feel challenged, like they are feeling stuff, but they don't feel so overwhelmed that now I'm getting them to be frustrated. So with all that said, who has questions?
Yeah.
I don't really have any questions, but I think it's really interesting, and especially how you document the cueing.
What do you mean by that? Oh, like the
Like to carry over and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really me trying to bring awareness with other coaches of like what I'm aware of, because they don't really pay attention to those things. And it was really me observing my employee and how much he sucked. I'm like, why does he suck? Why is he not the same? Like, I'm teaching him, and it was him not being aware enough of these little cues of Jacqueline needs to be demoed at each exercise, and you're not noticing that. Like, you're not noticing the expression on her face of like, I don't know what that exercise is. And it's like, I feel like I catch on to these little things. It's also probably my obsessive compulsive personality disorder that I do pay attention to these little things. Like, I watch someone walk away from an exercise, and then I like look at my business partner, like, did you not notice that? Like, why did you just add weight to that? Like, she literally walked away and she's like, ow, my neck. And like, he didn't even pay attention to that. So it's mostly like making sure that we're all paying attention to the same things.
Well, yeah. And also, like, I think I have a very good memory, but during COVID, because my brain's been elsewhere, I don't remember my cues that I gave people or props. And so I've had to start writing stuff down just for myself. And so I think it's just helpful to remember to do that for any reason.
Yeah, because I used to be that person. Everything was in my head.
Right, and it's not productive.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of energy.
Right.
I would like, and I really learned to appreciate writing things down with my colleague Levi, because he teaches classes. Everything is written down to the point where he doesn't even know what class he's teaching until he opens his book. Like, that's how mindful he is. He would come to the gym to say good morning to us. I'm like, what class are you teaching today? I don't know. It's already planned. So he just doesn't even have to think about it. It's pretty awesome. So now I don't even have to remember or think about the client until they come in and I look at their program.
Right.
So it does take a lot of mental energy to try to remember these things. Sam, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask so do you have it, do you use iPads or paper? I heard you say paper a few times. So is this written on their program? Do they see it? Like, what is client facing and what is, for you and your team?
Yeah, I have, go back to, this here is on my computer. And then this is all on my computer, or the movement observations is on my computer. But then this is on paper when they come in for their first session. And so that's like on just a single sheet with their name on the whiteboard. So once they come and see me, I make the adjustments on the template and then I print this out. That was what we did before COVID. So now we're actually like in the middle of figuring out how to do programs now work. Are we going to have them on paper? Should we have it all on TrueCoach, iPads? So that's probably going to change. But I do like paper. But we also been using TrueCoach the last 2 months, which is awesome. But I don't want clients like on their phone looking at their program. So I don't know yet. But so since pandemic, that was the only thing that was on paper. Any other questions?
And Lucy, for like people who sort of their resting, trap tone is just very high. When you're looking sort of, is this position, are their traps on? If their traps are always on, is it relative to their resting tone? Or will you sort of kind of take that into account in advance of which position do you put that person in?
Depends on who I'm working with. So if they're always toned, like even just sitting here, and it's, what I'm talking about, the people who are just really stiff and toned and carry their stress on their shoulders, I will just get rid of all reaching, like all upper body. I won't do any of it. If they're deconditioned and have pain. If they are just trying to work out and they're fat loss clients, I probably let them get away with some upper body lifts where I don't like it very much, but I let it go. To give them a little bit of what they want. They'll still do sled pushing where it's going to be too much upper trap tone, but I hope that gets better over time. But if I'm dealing with someone who's deconditioned, I just get rid of all reaching for probably their first 4 weeks. But pull downs seem to work pretty well. Instead of arm bars, I will also do, especially someone who's overweight, they will hold on to the cable and the cable is pulling them. So they're not holding that. And I see, are they able to relax this and like just let that stretch out? And that seems to work pretty well with those people. And then like every few sessions, I try something to see if it's better and then introduce it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Cool. And Julia, did you have a question? Okay. Any others?
Lucy, do you advertise specifically to the deconditioned population, or is it word of referral, or do they see you out?
I do. I say people who are scared of going to the gym, people who've been hurt before. I use a lot of terms, restorative. Apparently people find me that way. I actually, see if I can click funnel. Learning about pain, I think, helped me market to these people, because I ended up really finding out how they see themselves. And the problem with people who are deconditioned and in persistent pain is they don't think they're capable of much. Like, they don't think their body is capable of hard exercise. So advertising that they're going to get a hard workout or they're going to lose body fat, they don't even think they're capable of that. So really understanding what they think of themselves, I bring it a step back, and we are going to make exercise feel good. Like, we're going to find ways. I'm going to help you be safe feel safe in your body. And the thing that I've heard a lot is, I just don't want to be punished the next day. So learn how to move your body and not be punished the next day. And that is how we've attracted a lot of people in pain, is because that's how they feel in the moment. And it's interesting to talk to marketing experts who don't understand pain, because they try to tell me, well, that's not really what they want. What they really want is fat loss. I'm like, yeah, but they think that their body is not capable of that. So they don't want that. They do, but they literally say, I don't even care about fat loss anymore. Like, I just want to be able to move my body. And I had
this is exactly what I was going to say, because I think when you've gone from being like, when you've gone through fat loss focused training and then you've been in pain, when you come out the other side of that, you really don't want to do fat loss training again. Maybe that's what got you into pain, or different for everyone. But I think as a trainer as well, fat loss is sometimes just so frustrating. Does anyone else find that? And just the idea of training people who are looking to feel good, or to feel things, in a nice way, rather than just be completely obsessed with losing fat by the training, is just, it's quite attractive to think of that as a business as well.
No, I agree with you. I don't like fat loss clients, honestly. Dave, my business partner, deals with them, because I don't even, if someone's like, how are you going to help me lose body fat? I'm just like, well, I don't know. Like, there's so much. Like, it can't just be exercise. I don't know why you can't lose body fat. And I feel like I'm lying to them to say, yeah, I can help you. Because I really can't, unless I'm a nutritionist, a trauma expert, financial support, and get their spouse on board, make sure their kids don't enable them. There's so much that goes into that I just don't even feel right to say, yeah, totally, we can help you with that. But we also don't attract those people. I attract people in pain, and then people with big autoimmune disease. They also are very similar to persistent pain. I had a lady with lupus, and she literally said, I don't care about fat loss anymore. She said, I used to want to be an Instagram influencer, but that goal is gone. Now I just want to be able to move my body. So it's been interesting to see the differences. I think I can pull up my old landing page. Any other questions?
What resources did you find helpful to help you learn more about pain and pain behavior?
Zach Couples' Pain Talk.
Okay.
And Jared Hall. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't.
He is awesome. And he's not a fan of like biomechanics. Let me know if that lets you open my landing page.
Oh, you know what? I can't click on it because I'm in the app, so then it kicks me out of Zoom.
Oh, okay. I can send it to you. But this was the landing page. I'll actually just share my screen. We were about to sign 15 people and then pandemic happened. So finally, a gym you don't have to be scared of. That was like my big thing. And then you're 20 days away from discovering a pain-free workout regimen. And then gyms can be a scary place for a lot of people, and you're completely normal if you're one of them. So if you think you have too many limitations or injuries, if you've been hurt in the gym in the past, if you've never exercised before, if the idea of lifting weights scares you, like, then this is a place for you. And then I specifically picked Jocelyn's comment on ours because she had all these old injuries. And like our guarantee, nothing around fat loss. Like you'll always feel comfortable and safe while working out. You will learn how to adapt your sessions around your chronic pain and autoimmune. You'll find a routine that you'll be able to sustain for a lifetime. And then, what's the other thing? Here, knee pain. Yeah, this is a big one. If you stick with us for 3 months, you'll look back and realize, wow, life is not so hard anymore. Because that's usually what people end up like. It's not so hard to like pick up my groceries or carry my groceries. And those are the type of results that our clients find very valuable. And then I also wanted to write, we can work around anything. So you'll have ups and downs, flare-ups, setbacks, stressful periods, and we're here for all of it. We were able to adapt to that. And I'm actually going to update this a little more for our next one. And what if the solution to your failed attempts to exercise had nothing to do with the lack of motivation and discipline? So like sticking to a gym routine can be easy choice to make if you don't dread working out and it doesn't provoke anxiety. So when you find a way to get stronger and feeling safe while doing so, staying committed to a consistent schedule becomes a realistic goal. So that is, that's our landing page. And like nowhere on there is like, you're going to get in the best shape of your life. I wouldn't feel right even saying that. But that got us 15 amazing people that were so bought in to our onboarding. They loved our onboarding, which was like a very slow process. It just sucks that they were all about to sign up and then we had to shut down. But we'll relaunch it, and a lot of them are wanting to come back. But that's and the beautiful thing about landing pages, that's not our website. So now I'm targeting that certain population. My business partner, he wants people to train harder. He wants people that love kettlebells. So the cool thing about landing page is that I can make a separate one for him, and we can target some people who want to do a kettlebell course. So I've read that like websites are dead and landing pages are the thing, because now you can really target those specific people instead of your website. Because we always struggled with that. Because on the website, I didn't want to scare people away who were in pain. But then my business partner is like, well, I want to train some guys who want to lift heavy. So we always struggled, like, who do we target with our website that talks about everybody? So with landing pages, you are able to just target certain people within your web business, which is pretty cool. Cool. Any other questions? So next week, I'll go over our first 2 programs and why I pick the exercises that I pick and why they're put together in that way. Hang on. Is the 4th on Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I had plans, but I might just be hungover. So, so now I have to take a seminar with Sam's bosses.
Actually, I do have one question. Can you tell us a little bit about your course that you're going to launch soon?
Yeah. So the course I'm going to launch soon is going to be a combination of teaching you all my onboarding systems and coaching systems, but then also having a lot of people role play and practice and learning copywriting, which was like a huge thing for me when it comes to coaching, is learning about marketing and learning how to talk about training. That like completely changed how I talk to clients about exercise. So learning about copywriting, learning about like these diverse skill sets that you need to be able to be successful with coaching, and then practicing like demoing and talking about it and explaining it. So one thing that my mentees do is they have to come up with a 2-minute elevator speech of a skeptical coach or client. It's the same. Why are you doing breathing? And so now they have to explain it to me, but without anatomy, without confusing me. Because what ends up happening is people are like, well, it's going to increase your movement variability. And that's where I'm like, nope, what's movement variability? What's hamstrings? Like what's guts? What's compression? So they have to learn how to explain things with zero anatomy, using their body so the client can see what they're saying. So it's going to be uncomfortable, but it helps people perform once they're doing it.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like putting people on the spot. With my students, I wrote an article of like, I put people on the spot because I love them, not because I'm trying to be an asshole. And then so I used to have them read it. I'm like, this is my intention to show you know, because I do seem like I'm mean and I'm putting you on the spot, but it's because I want you to be better. Because I sucked. Like I had to go work at a restaurant to keep my coaching job because I was so awful at talking. Like you couldn't hear me when I taught classes. So they're like, Lucy, if you want to keep your job, you have to like learn to say words. So I had to go work at a restaurant so I could like learn how to do small talk and learn how to find my voice. So I always have like a soft spot for people who are very introverted, who struggle with that.
Right on.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm going to go attend a seminar now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy.
Welcome. Bye.
Someone come up and say hi.
Huh? I will.
Yeah.